Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sir.
Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The e-learning is still down, I think, here. Can you access them now?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Yeah.
No, sir. No. Wait.
This is not a good thing, yeah. I access the e-learning facility, yeah, in maybe at 7:50, yeah. It is still okay, yeah. I could do many things there, yeah. Arranging something, yeah, there. But all of a sudden, yeah, at 8, yeah, sekitar pukul 8, yeah, when I text you to record your attendance, yeah, somehow it is down, yeah. So this is not very convenient, yeah, for us, yeah, because the university has decided, yeah, decided to use that facility, yeah. So by the way, yeah, that's the way it is now, yeah. I think that's okay, yeah. We are maybe the university is still trying their best, yeah, to give us e-learning facility. Now today we have two presentation, yeah, from group which group?
2 and 6, sir.
Okay, group 2 and group 6, yeah. The topic, what's the topic about? Digital media design theories and principles, yeah. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Group 2. Who are the members of group 2?
Yosia, Aulia Gusti, Anissa Milenia, dan Aulia Luis, sir.
This is Yosia speaking, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So you are the captain of the group, Yosia?
I don't know, sir.
Oh, you don't know, yeah. Okay, yeah. And then you are ready, yeah. And then the next one is group 6. Who are the members of group 6?
Adinda, Indah Amalia, Cantika, and Widat, sir.
Okay, Widat, yeah. Adinda, Octavia tadi, ya. I think Octavia has.
Indah and Cantika, sir.
Oh, Indah and Cantika. Okay, yeah. Okay, now we are using free facility from Zoom, yeah. So we only have 45 minutes, yeah. So if it is disconnected, yeah, suddenly, yeah. But there is usually a warning, yeah, 5 minutes or 10 minutes before it is disconnected by Zoom. I will send you a new link, yeah, for the meeting, okay? That's not a problem, yeah? Class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
No problem, yeah? If you say yes, you have a problem, yeah? Okay. Yeah. So we just start, yeah, from group 1, yeah, the presentation. So we are going to do the presentation just like last week, yeah. We have presentations and then from group 2 and then presentation from group 6 and then question and answer, yeah, from questions, yeah, or responses from the other groups, yeah. 2 question at least for each group, for each group presenters, yeah. Then after that, group 2 will answer all the question for them, and then group 6 also will answer the question for them, yeah. And then we'll conclude our presentation today, yeah. Okay. Okay, group 2. Group 2, please. You can.
Yes, sir.
The moderator of group 2, you can take over, yeah, the presentation from me, please.
I'm sorry, sir, but I can screen sharing, sir.
A minute. Okay, try again. Yosia.
Yes, sir. Okay, do you see the slide, sir?
Okay, good morning everyone. We are from group 2. We would like to present our material about digital media design theories and principles. But before we would like to introduce ourselves first. My name is Aulia Gustiami and my partners are Aulia Uis Uzana, Anissa Milenia, and Yosia Ismail. Next slide, please. Okay, for the first material would be explained by Yosia. Yosia, time.
Okay, thank you, Aulia Gusti. First thing first, I would like to explain you about multimedia and the human learning process. According to Atkinson and Shifrin, 1968, proposed the dual store model of memory, which includes the 3 components. The first is sensory register, short-term or working memory, and long-term memory. The first is sensory memory. The stimuli register the information into the sensory memory to the 5 senses of sight: hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Sensory memory capacity is unlimited, and information is stored in the pre-processed form in which it has been sensed. The sensory memory capacity is unlimited. And the second is short-term or working memory. In the short-term or working memory, the information that gains attention is then moved to the short-term memory. Some of the items that attract attention include large size, more intense stimuli, novel information, incongruous objects, stimuli with strong emotional association and personal significance. So the short-term memory capacity is very limited and the duration is brief. And next is long-term memory. Based on control processes, there is movement of information of the short-term memory to long-term memory. Usually, the long-term memory capacity is unlimited and the duration is long. Next, according to Mayer, 201, proposed the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. In this model of learning, there are 2 separate channels for processing information. For example, like auditory and visual. This model is based on the dual coding theory, where information enters the sensory memory either as words or pictures through ears and eyes. Through separate channels, these are transferred to the working memory in separate channels. Next is Mayer research-based multimedia design principles. There are 7 Mayer's research based on multimedia design principles. The one first is multimedia principle. According to Clark and Mayer 2016, advice using both words of such as printed or spoken text and graphics, such both static or dynamic, to create multimedia presentation with the goals of creating a meaningful and engaging learning experience. Graphics can be complemented the words and trigger the metal receptor to assist in organizing the content. Also, graphics can be used in various ways. For the example, like to teach content, provide organization, and show relationship. And the second is contiguity principle. It refers to the best way in which position graphics and text on screen. There are 2 kinds of contiguity principle. The first is spatial contiguity principle and the temporal contiguity principle. The spatial contiguity principle states that for printed words, the text should be placed near graphics it corresponds to. The temporal contiguity principle states that voice narration should be seen with the graphic presentation. And the third is modality principle. It refers to the presenting words as audio narration rather than as on-screen text. The concept features a presentation of the information in such a way that it's not cognitively taxing and best for facilitating learning. And fourth is redundancy principle. It explains the use on the screen with corresponding graphics, while simultaneously using narration to repeat the text. According to the research from Marino and Mayer, 2002, results shown that from tests that learners can potentially score 3 times better with correct responses when they receive lessons that have narration and text than they did from the lesson with only narration. And the 5 is coherence principle. It states that editing extra elements to the lesson to dull, interesting, or entertaining are to be avoided at all costs. For the example, like background music and song or song. According to the studies that conducted by Moreno and Mayer 2000, when background music or sounds were added to the lesson with voice narration, students did more poorly on recall than students who given the same lesson without background music or sounds. And the 6th is personalization principle. It states that any lesson are designed with the use formal, written, and verbal language. The personalization principle recommends using a conversational rather than formal style as research suggests that people respond more favorably to the human voice as opposed to a computerized machine-like voice and to polite language. And the last, segmenting and pre-training. The theoretical foundation for segmenting and pre-training principle is grounded in the cognitive theories. Its basis is similar to the chaining, where the instruction is modelized and structured into small tasks or links that assist the learner to achieve the appropriate responses. The next material will be explained by my partner.
Okay, now I would like to discuss about Clark and Lyon's theory and principles for using graphics for learning. So before telling more about Clark and Lyon's theory, I will explain what is graphic design. So graphic design, also known as communication design. Graphic design uses visual composition to solve problems and communicate ideas through typography, imagery, color, and form. And according to Clark and Lyons, the instructional graphics are a pictorial expression of content designed to promote learning and improve performance. They also state that the learning value of the visual depends on three interactive factors. The first one is features of visual, second content and goal of the lessons, and the last is characteristic of the learner. Next slide, please. So the first one is features of the visual. So what is features of the visuals? So it is a compact numerical representation, typically in vector form, of image content that enable efficient comparison, like similarity computation, between pairs of content items. In brief, it is the structure, form, or appearance of the visual. And according to Clark and Lyons 2010, there are three characteristics for the features of the graphic that is effective for learner servers, communication, and psychological. So the first one is servers. So it is refers to what the graphics look like and how they are created. The various examples of surface types include static illustration, photos, dynamic videos, and even the animation. So planning is very important before someone start to create something. The second one is psychological. So it refers to how the image facilitates learning through the psychological processes as the image engage like attention, prior knowledge, mental load, mental models, transfers, or knowledge and motivation of the learner, like adding extra nervous visual and text, although relevant to the topic. In some, if the visual do not support psychological learning, there is a change they actually hinder with the learning process. And next slide, please. And the last is communication. So it refers to how the image conveys information, like show motion, illustrate quantitative relationship. Communication in this characteristic is like a grammar rules that help order words and meaning. Clark and Lyons 2010 have adapted the classification of illustration to facilitate the use of graphics in the design and planning instruction. Here there are 7 types of communication for graphics they devise. So each type of design will have a suitable place to use it. For example, like when we want to use transformational graphic, we can use it in a video. Next slide, it will talk about content and goal of the lesson. So consideration for goal of instruction should guide the practitioner in the appropriate selection of graphic for the entire lessons. And according to Clark and Lyons 2010, there are 3 characteristics of graphics that engage learning. So the first one is provide memory support, like using visual in instruction to reduce cognitive load and engage retrieval of content. And the second one is build mental models or schemas that enable the classification of new knowledge with prior knowledge. So learners with prior knowledge tends to be more strategic and can integrate visual and verbal information more successfully. And the last is assist visualize lesson content. So the authors present 5 ways to visualize lesson content types when employing instruction. These include procedures, concepts, facts, processes, and principles. And the last is talk about learner characteristics. So the type of visual selected for instruction will depend on the learner's unique characteristic. Visual should be adapted to learning modality and unique learning characteristic of the learner and the learning context. And according to Clark and Lyons 2010, there are three learner characteristics. The first one is prior knowledge. Next slide, please. The first one is prior knowledge. So each learner comes to learning processes with existing knowledge and skills. The selection of appropriate visual should be based on this prior knowledge of the content by the learner. And then spatial ability. So it refers to the ability to comprehend and mentally manipulate visual and make reason interpretation based on visual information. And the last is visual literacy skill. So it refers to the ability of the learner to effectively interpret or make a sufficient use of the visual. And the author emphasized that their grading principle for choosing visual instruction and the resulting learning outcomes are determined by the combination of three factors. The first one is the functionality of graphics, for example, like layout, communication, and psychological representation. And the second one is the unique characteristic of the learner and the learning context. And the last is and that selection of graphics be based on research evidence. So the author states that the use of graphics for instruction should be grounded in empirical evidence, like the table that I told you before about base uses for 7 types of graphics. Okay, the next explanation will be delivered by my partner.
So, well, there is our lesson in visual literacy for creating graphics for learning and performance. So, in here, Laura discusses her rationale for using well-known design principles and well-regarded theories on how people learn as he integrated and applies them in ways that are both systematically and effective for facilitating the learning process. He also in here, Laura 3 design principles are used for creating the appropriate visual to facilitate learning by incorporating the 3 types of memory: sensory, short-term, and long-term memory. And those are already been explained by my partner before. Laura links her 3 cognitively based design principles, and those are selection, organization, and integration to the information processing theory. Next slide, please. Principle number 1 is selection principle. So Laura selection principle state that it is the design that help the learner target what needs to be selected. The information the learner needs to learn should be communicated simply and clearly, free from extraneous and unnecessary information that would lead to cognitive overload. So the designer in here must be aware of unconscious as well as conscious selection. With unconscious selection, the designer should consider that people mentally fill in lines and letters based on past learning experiences, which is inform their perception. Next slide, please. Principle number 2 is organization principle. So according to Laura organization principle, design should aid the learner in processing the information by organizing the material in a way that helps the learner make sense of the information. For example, if there is a lot of information to learn, the material should be hierarchical and segmented into smaller modular units. And also the instruction should include visual aid, diagram, and simulation to help the learner navigate and make sense of the information. Next slide, please. Uh, Actually, there is a principle number 3, that is integration principle. And in that, Laura state that the design should assist the learner in understanding the broader point of the topic they need to learn. And next is Robin Williams for basic design. So Robin Williams stated good design hints upon knowing, recognizing, and applying the 4 design principles. The 4 design principles are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. He argues that once learned, one can determine right away when the principle has been violated or is absent. Next slide, please. The first principle is contrast. So according to the principle, contrast makes item that is dissimilar visibly different as this can both visual and interest. Contrast can added by using colors, lines, and fonts, and not just only by just posing item and content. Next slide, please. The second principle is repetition. So the principle here states that the repetition and consistency reinforce the point or idea. For example, like color, lines, font, etc. are used to reinforce the intentionality of the design and content and convey cohesion. Next slide, please. Next is alignment. The principles state that nothing should be placed on the page haphazardly, and every graphic or word should have an intended placement and purpose. If items are placed at the center, the eyes will go there as the placement say the item is important. There should be logic behind the arrangement of the item, and each item should connect in some way
Aulia,
to another.
Aulia,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, we are going to run out of time, yeah?
Okay.
So I will disconnect this first, yeah? And then you will continue from what you left off now, yeah? Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Aulia, please. Aulia Asia.
Okay, the next is universal principle of design. Principle of design sits at the foundations of everything we do visually as designers. They describe how everyone visually perceives objects. The principles should be relatively easy to understand. For most of them, the definitions and the image are probably all you need to understand the principle. There are about 28 design principles, each for the five-way design in use as presented by Linwell and others, 2010 in Universal Principle of Design. Here, the five principles highlighted that were chosen for their cross-disciplinary applicability and popular usage. First is ways to influence how a design is perceived. Second, ways to help people to learn from design. Third, way to enhance the usability of design. Fourth, ways to increase the appeal of design, and the last is ways to make better design decisions. Next slide, please. Ways to influence how a design is perceived. There are three that we can highlight. First is highlighting, second is closure, and the last is proximity. Highlighting is the technique for emphasizing aspect of the design like bold, underlying, italic, and then adding color or else. And then closure is similar to the principle of Gestalt. The idea is that people see sets at pattern as opposed to a single separate unit. This is strongest when the patterns are simple and close in proximity. And proximity is when the elements are very close together, they are perceived are as related, and grouping elements together reduce complexity in the design, making the idea easy to understand. Next slide, please. Next is ways to help people to learn from design. First is advanced organizer. Advanced organizer is grounded in cognitive theory and instructional technique for presenting concept before introducing new information. Second is chunking, presenting a lot of information into smaller units, making the content easy to comprehend and remember. And the last is comparison. It is a technique to show relationship and pattern. Next slide, please. Next is way to enhance the usability of design. First is 80 per 20 rule. It is useful to narrow the focus on the resources and for assessing the cost benefit of including element in the design. The premise is that 80% of the uses of the resources in any large system are caused by 20% of the variable. Second is accessibility. It is the object and design should be constructed and or arranged to be accessible to everyone without the need for modifications or accommodation. And then the last is interpreted pyramid is the critical information is presented first in describing order. Next, next is way to increase the appeal of design. First is baby face bias. People tend to see objects or elements in design with the baby-like features as cute, vulnerable, as being more trustworthy. Second is golden ratio. Golden ratio, also referred to as the golden mean, is the mathematical ratio found inherently in nature. And then the last is framing. It is a technique used to influence decision making by the new information is presented through manipulating the element of in the design. Next slide, please. And then the last is ways to make better design decision. Cost benefit. These design decisions are made based on whether the benefit exceeds the cost of the activity. And then form follows function. The idea is the aesthetic in the design should be secondary to the purpose and usability of the design. Last is hierarchy of needs. Basic needs in design should address basic needs before higher order needs can be met. Next slide, please. The last is summary. So the selections and integration of digital media is intentional and therefore considered in every stage of the design and development in instruction. The selection and placement of digital media should adhere to the theory, principle, and guidelines on the way people process information and learn. It is essential to keep in mind the human learning processes and how digital media learning can support or disrupt it. Multimedia learning principle, design and types principle, and graphic design principle, universal design principle provide guidance in the selections and integrations of digital media. Okay, that's all from us from group 2. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, group 2, thank you. The other group, you can prepare your question for group 2 now ya. Silakan you could prepare them now ya. When the time to deliver the question comes, it's easy for you ya, just to type the question. Now we continue to the presentation from group 6. Group 6?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Group 6, okay, you can start your presentation now.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, sir and everyone. Today we are from group 6. We would like to present about multimedia instructional design. But before that, let me introduce my group. So there is Adinda Safa Safira, Shantika Putri, Widat Mapandre, and then me, Indah Amalia, as a moderator. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first is Introduction to Multimedia Instructional Design. So multimedia instruction consists of instructional messages that contain words such as printed or spoken text, and then pictures such as illustration, diagrams, photos, animation, or video. So the rationale for multimedia instruction is that people can learn more deeply from words and pictures than from words alone. And the goal of multimedia instructional design is to create a system of the working memory. So multimedia instruction is simply the presentation of both words and images to support student learning of a concept by giving the learner a visual input with a corresponding verbal input. And in this multimedia instructional design, there are course design schedule that describes about the project and list milestone, deliverables, and deliverable dates. And then project team that explain about list roles and responsibility. And then there is media specification that explain about the document type, general presentation style, text, grammar, graphics, font, themes, editing symbols, and so on. And then the last is the lesson structure that describes about how the content is grouped, ordered, linked, or navigated, such as the types of information to be taught and methodology for delivering instruction. So the lesson flow with respect to events of instruction such as course flow charts, unit, lesson, and detailed content remains ready for students to implement. And then feedback using visual, user-friendly activity, and implementation time. Next slide, please. And then we're talking about SCORM or Shareable Content Object Reference Model. So it is a set of technical standards for e-learning products that tells the developers how to write code so it works with other e-learning software. So this SCORM is all about creating units of online training material that can be shared across learning management system or LMS. So SCORM is divided into three parts. First is design. So you can divide broad objectives into smaller objectives until you get to the smaller unit of the shareable content object. And then the second is packaging. So SCORM packaging specifies how each shareable content object is positioned and accessed in a learning activity, and it addressing how the activity is structured and sequenced within the learning management system menu. And the last is communication. So when people talk about SCORM, they are usually referring to SCORM communication. So the part of SCORM that allows the reporting of the learner's progress and accomplishment within a shareable content object. Next slide, please. And then now we are talking about e-learning's impact on design. So I analogy the e-learning here as a web. So the web is certainly a pliable vehicle for the constructivist approach to designing solution. So with so many websites and so much information available on just about every topic imaginable, this web can be used very effectively to allow users or students to explore topics and draw conclusions from their own research. So the impact is e-learning positively helping an individual development plans in the instructional design. With an e-learning portal, the training paths can be developed that give clear insight into the required learning that has to be undertaken before the progression can happen. Also, e-learning can provide new fun ways of displaying letters and words, which make the process of developing language and knowledge a lot more successful in multimedia instructional design. And the last explanation will be explained by my partner.
Okay, now I would like to explain about project schedule. A project schedule is an outline of a project that organizes tasks and activities, estimate their duration, identify their dependencies, sets overall milestone, and place all that information on a timeline. It also defines the resource needed to complete this task. And whatever the delivery medium or media, use the same basic principle for developing a project schedule. Each component of project planning must be integrated and coordinated, but in a different manner. For example, although CBT and web-based courseware are structured around learning components, distant broadcasting and teleconferencing are structured around time events. Each must be carefully scheduled for effective development and implementation, regardless of the resulting product. Scheduling at the activity level is often the result of design decision and compromise made on the basis of the cost, availability, and the capability of key personnel and tools. And there are three activities in the process of creating a project schedule. The first one is document general project information, and then list project deliverables, and the last is schedule project activities. Next slide, please. Okay, for project schedule procedure, uh, there are three activities who project schedule procedure. For the first one is activity one, document general project information. Develop and include a brief statement, for example, about the purpose of the project and what business need is addressed, the current performance gaps and obstacles, the desired outcome and high-level performance requirements, any project constraint or issue, and the assumption you are making that have an impact on timeline or project success. And then activity 2, list project deliverables. List the deliverables or milestone and associate dates specific to your project. Deliverables and milestone might include developing, reviewing, and approving audio script, storyboards, prototype screen interface, programming templates, or models. And then the next activity 3 is schedule project activities. Especially for large project, it is important that activities be well organized and that all team members first know their roles and responsibilities, and then next be aware of the project timeline, and last deliver their project components at the appropriate time. And then there are plans for this review in the schedule. For the first one, a technical or functional review, and then an ID review, a standard review, an editorial review, and the last, a management review. The next slide, please. Okay, now I would like to explain about project team. The project team is the group of people responsible for executing the tasks and producing deliverables outlined in the project plan and schedule, as directed by the project manager at whatever level of effort of participation defined for them. In here, there are three activities in the process of defining rules and responsibilities for project team members. The first one is list team roles and list project tasks, and the last, assign roles and responsibilities. Next slide, please. Okay, for the first one is activity 1, list team roles. As a team, list the roles required. Review the typical roles and responsibility of design team in the list that follow, and then select those appropriate
for your particular project. In here, it includes audio producer or technician, as produce all audio, cast a talent, schedule audio recording session, and etc. And then author. Author here is produce written or electronically mediated instructional materials. And then construct interaction and makes revision and work with the graphic designer to incorporate graphic into the product. And then director. Creative director here uh, to collaborate with the graphic designer regarding media elements. And then for editor, uh, to edit written or author material. And then the next evaluation specialist for develop or review the evaluation plan and tools. And then a graphic artist to work with the graphic designer to create content graphic. And then graphic designer to design and produce graphic for instructional materials. And then implementation representative to identify implementation activity according to the medium or media selected. And then the next interactive designer and instructional designer. It prepare objective as a part of the project team and define the content. And then the next performance analysis. They identify ideal and actual performance condition. And then the next project manager and project leader who manage the project, including the people, resources, schedule, and processes. And then the next quality reviewer or evaluator who identify what impact an intervention has on individual or organization effectiveness. And then sponsor who interface with the project team on all decisions, status of project, and seek sign off. And then subject matter expert who review the content in various stages for accuracy and give feedback to interactive designer. And then system designer who design how the product work from a technical standpoint. And then system engineer who provide information, technology service, primarily application development and support. And then video editor for digitize and edits all video. And then video producer to produce and direct all video for the product. And then the activity 2 is list project tasks. List all the tasks that will be required during each phase of the project. Also, we should develop a separated metric for each phase of the project. And then activity 3, assign role and responsibility. In here, it depending on the size of your project, the timeline, and the skill and resources needed. Also, we may find that team members fill multiply roles or that you require more than one person to fill a role. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, the next slide will be explained by Widat.
Okay, now I will explain about media specification. In media specification describes standards and design for multimedia elements such as theme and interface, design and functionality, writing style and grammar guidelines, feedback and interaction standards, video and audio treatments, and some other elements which will be explained in a moment. Next slide, please. Oh, never mind. Back to the previous slide, sorry. Okay, the design decision on these multimedia elements are a set of compromises that weigh theories and best practices in learning and performance support, knowledge of the audience and content, project team member preferences, skills and talents, and project realities such as the budget, timeline, and stakeholder preferences. An appropriate goal is to design a performance support environment or learning environment that engages the learning modalities, provides a comfortable and stress-free environment in which to learn or perform, presents the content at the right level and sequence, and with as much fidelity to the real environment as possible, and to meet the constraints and requirements of the project goal. Next slide, please. 4 approaches to learning. Here are the 5 senses grouped into 4 approaches. What is wrong with my voice? Is it?
No problem, it's clear.
Oh, okay. My friend thought. Okay. Here are 5 senses. 5 senses grouped into 4 approaches in learning. The first one is visual. Presenting instruction using anything learners can look at. Visuals include video, graphics, animation, and written text on a computer screen, whiteboard, flip chart, overhead, transparencies, books, posters, and so on. Second one is auditory, presenting instruction using anything student can listen to, such as tapes, audio teleconferencing, CBT lecture, sound effects, music, and so on. The third is olfactory, presenting instruction using anything students can smell or taste, such as when a student discerns that equipment is overheating or something is burning or something has been prepared with too much spice and so on. And the fourth is tactile or kinesthetic, presenting instruction using anything students can touch or manipulate, such as model actual parts or equipment, or having student performs demonstration and role plays, and so on. Next slide, please. Now I will explain about media specification procedure. Defining the media elements determines the look and feel of the final product. There are 7 activities that are included in media specification procedure, which are, the first one is activity 1, define the look and feel of the theme. In this activity, there are several steps. The first one, step 1, brainstorm a list of themes. Delete any theme that could offend culturally sensitive audience members or be viewed as religious or sexist in nature or anything that's inappropriate in general. Narrow the list to your top 3 or 4 themes and use the information you have gained in analysis to define a theme and general presentation style. The goal in defining a theme is to support learning with a unified look and feel, add interest and relate to the audience and content, and constitute a starting point for creating multimedia analogies, graphics, set, and costume design, textiles, activities, and so on. Themes should be associated with the actual learning process the solution is designed for. Learning-related themes enhance transfer of knowledge to do the job. Step 2 is mock-up textiles. Ideas for an interface design, set design, costumes and analogies or graphic style that support each theme on paper. And the last step is decide on the theme that you want to go with. Next slide, please. Activity 2, define the interface and functionality. The interface design for multimedia should be representative of the theme, audience characteristics, and organizational environment. In addition, the interface design should be as simple as possible with adequate white space, uniform spacing, and adequate margins. Use consistent screen areas for repeated screen elements such as titles, feedback, links, menus, or prompts. And include a consistent navigation design so users become comfortable within the learning or support environment. Now what we have here is a common design for multimedia, which is a Z pattern screen design. Generally, the most important information, such as graphics or photos, are placed at the upper left of the screen, and text or supporting information on the right of the important information, followed by prompts and navigation at the bottom left. The most often used navigation button is placed at the bottom right of the screen. This placement facilitates mouse-click navigation for right-handed mouse users. Again, this is just another example. It's just an example of a good screen design pattern. Next slide, please. Activity 3. Define the interaction and feedback standards. We should begin by defining the standards for interaction and feedback. One of the strengths of multimedia is the capacity for interaction. A lot of exciting work is being done in the area of intelligent interfaces, VR, and various means of interaction, such as natural language interface, voice and speech technology, gesture recognition, and etc. For the time being, multimedia interaction is typically entered through a microphone, keyboard, or mouse. But whatever the input method, interaction must capture a user's attention and help him or her form associations. In multimedia courses, interaction should be frequent and produce student involvement. We, I recommend, it is recommended that we use student-controlled pacing and branching. One of the examples of feedback standard is objectivism approach. Objectivism uses structured questioning techniques. There are clear instructions and the question contains only one correct response. Indicate the format for the sentence containing the question and possible answers in your standards so that they have a distinct and consistent screen format. Most questions are a variation of text entry. Clicking on an object, multiple choice, or matching. They permit one or two tries before the user is given the correct answer and allowed to move on. All questions should be titled, worded clearly, and easy to understand. For the feedback, it should be neither distracting nor reward incorrect responses. It should be immediate, informative, and positive and motivational. There should be no excessive delay from the time the user performs an action to when the feedback occurs. Okay, next is activity 4. Define the video and no, not the other slide. Yes, activity 4. Define the video and audio treatment. Define the audio, photography, and video standards. Here are the standards to be established depending on the media and technology specification you are using. First one is audio, narration style and tone. For example, female narrator, American English. This indicates sound file types and file naming convention. Determine how sound effects and music are used. Music is an especially good tool for signaling the beginning or an end of an instructional sequence. We see this a lot, such as in TOEFL test and some other proficiency tests. Next one is photography, including file type, file naming convention, and size requirements, and video, also including file type, file naming convention, and size requirements. Any photo and video should clearly support the goals of the project. Video should be shot with enough detail to demonstrate the objectives of the training. It should be used as an aid in and support for the text, graphics, and audio presentation of the content.
Okay, with that,
Okay,
I think you need to stop now, yeah. But I think we'll go to after to continue this. We'll go to e-learning, yeah. I think there's no problem anymore with e-learning, yeah. We could use the big blue button there, yeah. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, see you in big blue button ya. Okay, group 6. By the way, can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
group 6, please continue.
Okay, now I would like to continue my presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, activity 5. Indicate text design and standards. Text design and standards stipulate such things as font style, size, and color. The text appearance and resolution on the screen should determine the size and font. Indicate the arrangement, both justification and letter spacing. Also indicate the display treatment. And activity 6, prepare the graphic design standards. The graphic design standards include file type, file size, naming convention, and color range. Graphics should have clear benefit to the presentation of the content and hold simplicity of designs as their overall characteristic. They should not stray too far from textual information. Graphics should be similar in size and placement, and any text that is included as callouts must be readable. Clarity and readability should not be dependent on color variations. There should not be more than 4 colors on a screen, and the entire course should use a palette of not more than 7 colors. The color used on screens should be consistent. Manage color contrast appropriately. No red on black or blue on orange. And for most audience, minimal use of hot color is best, such as red and orange. Activity 7, decide on animation and special effects. That one is wrong. It should be activity 7. Determine whether to use animation and special effects. They are good for capturing the user's attention and effective if used to signal instructional events, such as the beginning or end of a sequence of instruction. They're also appropriate when you have to illustrate a moving object that is not easily photographed. Animation and special effects should be used to support the learning objectives. Okay, next slide, please. This part will be explained by Adinda.
Okay, thank you. So, certain principles of learning operate in any educational media. There are 16 principles of learning that have been synthesized from research literature on how people learn. Principle 1, use review in learning. Principle 2, include instructions and specified objective. 3, be sure verbal content is effective. 4, use examples and demonstrations. 5. Build in student success. 6. Tailor course to audience. 7. Keep pace brisk with variation. 8. Include smooth transition. 9. Clear assignment and direction. 10. Maintain proper standards. 11. Monitor, circulate, and check work. 12. Ask one question at a time. 13. Work in feedback. 14. Follow feedback with appropriate technique. 15. Material should motivate. And the last one, connect material to the real world. So I will not explain all of the all of it. So you guys can see from the ebook page 130. So I will explain principle 1, use review in learning. The application to multimedia is begin multimedia lessons with a review of relevant information presented in previous lessons. And for present principle 2, include instruction and specified objective. Students learn more when lesson and activities are introduced and learning objectives are specified. The application to multimedia is design the beginning of your multimedia lessons to include statements of lesson objectives put in terms appropriate to the learner, explaining what the student is expecting to know or to do. For example, a multimedia topic on sanitation might present the objective on screen along with this element. First, element audio. The audio is explaining the section. And then the second element is text, supporting text that is written on the screen. And then the last element is a photo, for example, like a photo of the ingredients. Next is principle 7. Keep pace breaks with variation. Students learn more when lessons are presented at a brisk pace and when instruction slows to accommodate students' understanding but avoids unnecessary slowdowns. The application to multimedia is effective lesson move a pace geared to individual rates of learning. Move rapidly for students who grasp information quickly and addition information for those who have difficulty grasping the information. For example, a lesson on medical terminology for hospital administrative assistant uses on a screen crossword puzzle, dictionary, and hints button to teach the meaning of common medical terms at a pace appropriate to the learner. And then principle 12. Students can learn more when questions are posed on at a time. The application to multimedia is automate media can deliver questions in any sequence desired. Next slide, please. Now, to make it clearer, I will give examples of application of principles of learning. For example, a financial organization was implementing a new large-scale enterprise resource planning or ERP system. The project evaluated and examined how management might remove obstacles from the path of successfully implementing ERP. Principle of learning were applied to the solution in the following way is principle 7, keep pace brisk with variation, and principle 12, ask one question at a time. One component of the training was a series of wablets. These were very brief for like 3 to 5 minutes slices of what would as a whole constitute a full web-based training. Each weblet illustrated transactions and provided a brief practice and feedback for the transaction. This kept the pace quick and presented the information in manageable chunks. Next slide, please. Learning and instructional delivery strategies. There are two major learning strategies common to any medium, including multimedia. First, directive. Directive is when students draw general conclusion from specific information and present the specific pieces of information from which students draw their general conclusion and apply the broader situation. And the second is inductive. Inductive requires students to draw specific conclusion from general information, allows them to achieve the desired conclusion by establishing the situation and allowing them to gather. Both inductive and deductive processes require students to prove their conclusions are correct. The difference is that the process begins from the opposite ends of the spectrum. Deductive is from drawing general conclusion from specific information, and inductive is drawing specific conclusion from general information. Also, there are major instructional delivery strategies followed. There are 10 major instructional delivery strategies. One, lecture or linear presentations. This strategy is often used to introduce a course that embraces a number of delivery methods. Second, lecture, recitation, interaction. Information is presented in a lesson interspersed with question or interaction. The third, lecture and discussion. Lecture and discussion involves presenting information and then discussion that require response and interaction among students. Fourth, lecture and demonstration. Demonstration at lecture and recitation, the dimension of actually showing concept to students using operational models. Fifth, guided learning, open exploration. Guided learning, open exploration, learning situations are created and structured. So the student must explore, raise, and answer their own questions. And the sixth is brainstorming. Brainstorming is a technique that can be used with exploration. It brings out all possible ideas on a topic which later be evaluated. 7. Games. Carefully constructed situational games are appropriate to all media and can have some very positive effects. They can drive home a point that would be rejected or have less effective if just stated. Also, if people enjoy learning, they tend to retain the information longer. 8. Role-playing. This type of simulation is a very effective method for practicing skills that are being learned. Students can receive feedback on how the skill is performed. 9. Simulation. Simulation are appropriate in all media, but multimedia simulation of software of human interaction situation are effective design choice. And the last one is performance support. Performance support is distinguished by information that is readily available via one or two keystrokes, a phone call, or a glance at a job aid or reference manual. Next slide, please. So, next one is the content structure procedure. There are 3 activities in this procedure. The first activity is break the content into units. Step 1, categorize the content into 6 major information types. Like on the slide, first is concept or ideas or definitions. Second, process consists of system of related ideas. The third, procedure consists of steps within a process. The fourth is principles, consists of guiding force, mission, and values. Fifth, fact, consists of single pieces of information. And the last one is system, consists of physical entities with operational parts. And then step 2 is arrange information based on a job task in order, simple to complex or biological content group. Next slide, please. The second the activity 2 is map the information. Step 1 is create a lesson outline. We can see in the table 19.1. Be certain it contains the appropriate instructional or learning event outline. Each topic within a lesson should be considered a mini lesson and follow the same pattern. And then step 2, arrange information based on a job task in order simple to complex or biological content groups. Um, After completing the lesson outline or concept map, we can create a course flowchart or map, like on the figure 19.2. A course flowchart can be developed on any flowcharting software application. Experiment with several such package and deciding one becomes easier for users. Next slide, please. So the activity 3 is about select SCORM. So my friend have explained about SCORM, and now is how we select SCORM. Vendors for custom, develop, and or off-the-shelf solution. First, ask for vendor's definition of reusable content object. Second, ask which LMS vendor has successfully run courseware through. And then third, ask for vendor's customer list. Okay, thank you. Back to the moderator.
Okay, I think that's six presentation. Now we would like to open question and answer section for group 2 and group 6.
Okay. Can you hear my voice, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, since we have a lot of problems, yeah. Here, yeah. We have only 15 minutes left. Yeah. Do you have class after this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So maybe we will work it this way. Yeah. So group one, you will have group two. I'm sorry. Group two, you will have 6 minutes. Group six, you will have 6 minutes. You choose the question you want to answer now, but later, yeah, you need to answer all, yeah, by making a recording. Yeah? Making a recording, you answering the question, and then you send the video of you answering the question to me. Yeah, it's up to you how you would send those videos to me, whether you send it directly or you just send me the link. It's up to you. Yeah. Okay. Is it understood what I meant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now start from group two, maybe one or two question, yeah, and then group six, one or two question, and then the rest you record. Okay, please, group two, you can start.
Okay, I would like to answer group one's question. The first is what uh, is uh, I'm sorry. What are the weaknesses of the using contiguity principle? There are some common weaknesses or mistake of the contiguity principle, such as separating graphics and text or narration, and text due to screen scrolling, and placing direction and assignment on separate pages. Because the point is the point of the contiguity principle is to keep this aspect such as graphic, text, or narration, keep related content in sync. And the second question from the group one, what is the function of each channel in dual coding theory? Uh, in our opinion, each channel is considered to have limited capacity based on Errors 2011. The function of the each channel is to process of selecting, organizing, and integrating information occurs in the working memory. Did I answer your question, Gupon? Okay, move to answering others group question.
Okay, I would like to answer the question from group 4. In the second question, that in your opinion, what is the importance of principle? The principle of design is the most important part of any design process. So without these principles, it would be very difficult for the users to understand the type of message that the designer is trying to communicate. So is it important to know all the principle of design? Group 4, did I answer your question?
Okay, I will add. Uh, I want to answer group 4 question. For the group 4, for the first question, where we have to combine new knowledge and prior knowledge in the characteristic of graphics that engage learning. So because prior knowledge enable readers to make more strategies, use of text and diagrams, and to integrate information successfully from the two sources using less mental effort. And the learners with the prior knowledge tends to be more strategic and can integrate visual and verbal information more successfully and with less mental effort. So group 4, did we answer your question?
Thank you, Anissa.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will answer group 5 question, which is why visual literacy is important. So visual literacy is essential for learners and those who teach. It is critical that students develop skill to create and utilize visual grammar to communicate and contribute to a global dialogue, because most of our students have access to smartphone devices that have camera functionality. The integration of visual literacy into their education become paramount. So classroom can become spaces for students to effectively communicate in and contribute to analytical and global dialogue for discussion of race and diversity, multicultural life, and history, thus encouraging students to become active the constructionists of visual grammar. Did I answer your question, group 5?
Okay, I would like to answer group 5 one more question. Is it possible to combine major research based on multimedia design research with one other? If it is possible, can you give me an example? My our question is yes, it is possible. For the example, teachers can combine multimedia and contiguity principle in the class because this principle has the same way or the same purposes, which is using text and graphics on the screen in order to make meaningful learning. That's it from our
We
answer.
I will answer group 3 question, which is why contrast is important. So contrast is important design principle that should be a part of every project. Why? Because contrast help organize your design and establish a hierarchy, which simply show which part of your design are most important and signal viewers to focus on those. But more than emphasizing the focal point of your design, good use of contrast adds visual interest, and a layout where everything is the same size, shape, and color is going to look pretty boring, but contrast spices things up. So, however, as with most design concept, contrast should be applied in a balanced way because too much contrast can be just as bad as none at all and may result in a confusing or visually jarring design. If all your design element contrast, nothing would stand out. So did I answer your question, group 3? So that's all from group 2 for the question and answer. Next for group 6.
Okay, for group 6, I would like to answer um, group 1 questions. Question 1, you said that brainstorming can be used with exploration. Do you think there are rules for doing brainstorming technique? Yes, there are some rules for doing brainstorming. Uh, there are all ideas are acceptable. No criticism of an idea is permitted. You can add to build on or give the complete opposite of any idea presented, and everyone should participate. And then for the question number 2, what are the weaknesses of no no what are the benefit of applying those principles? Applying those principles of instruction along with a sound instructional strategy allows you to order the content for instructional effectiveness, involving as many team members as is practical, boost morale and build some consensus and improve the quality of the design. Did I answer the question?
Okay, now I would like to answer question from group 3. Can you give some examples of features that can help student in multimedia design? So I would like to mention some. The first one is exit, next, menu, and back buttons to facilitate navigation. Next one is bookmarking so that student can return to a course and navigate to the last topic or frame they completed. A glossary button so the students can search for terminology they don't know. A help button with navigation tips, and lastly, an audio repeat button so student can repeat the audio over and over again in particular frame. The next question is it better to use as many senses as possible when learning or focus on few senses only? So our group thinks that it is better to use as much senses as possible. The best learning occurs through using more than one of the senses. Even though one sense might be preferred, learning is reinforced through secondary sensory learning methods. Because the best learning occurs through more than one sense, the best instruction stimulates as many senses as possible. For example, it is better to use video because it uses two senses, visual and auditory, instead of just using recording that uses audio because students prefer those. Okay, next question.
Okay, so I would like to answer the question from group 4. The first question is, do we need SCORM for multimedia instructional design? So I think we don't need SCORM to create a great multimedia instructional design because it doesn't change the design process, but the instructional still create their performance objectives that drive the design of activities, so it can be a good instructional design. And then the question number 2 is, you talk about e-learning impact on design. So does the design and e-learning itself related with each other? In my opinion, is the design of an educational program and the e-learning actually doesn't have to relate each other, but it's still helpful to know in advance about which concept may be particularly difficult to create a good instructional design. So group 4, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Indah.
Okay, now I'd like to answer from group 5 that why the team schedule be an important aspect in multimedia instructional design. Creating a project schedule is an important aspect of multimedia instructional design. Why? Because the design must be not only effective but also achievable within the context of the business need, time frame, and personnel and resources needed to perform the work. Also, schedulers communicate share understanding of how the design affect goals, project tasks, and team members' roles and responsibilities. And then the second question about according to activity 3 in project about roles and responsibilities, could you explain more about how to use role and responsibilities in one project? Okay, for the first one is the way we about roles and responsibilities. For the first one, write a job description. In this description section, write a brief paragraph or two that give an overview of the job role. And in the second, include a list of responsibilities. In this section, get more specific with the duties and responsibilities of this job role. And then the third, include job qualification and requirement. If you are using a role and responsibilities for a job posting, include the qualification and requirement you want to applicants to have. And then the fourth is outline who this position reports to. This portion of a roles and responsibility is especially useful for when you are training a new employee. Okay, uh, I think that's all about my answer for group 5. And then next I would like to continue to the next uh, group 7. Uh, Talking about some review and project schedule, could you give a reason why we should use review, and is there any software to make that schedule easier? Review are an important aspect of multimedia project success because they ensure the quality of the instruction design and the validity of content. For the software, I'm so sorry if I don't mention in PowerPoint, but we can use some software, for example, Microsoft Project or Microsoft Scheduler Plus. Also, you can use some application, for example, like Teamwork, Mavenlink, Research Guru, Paywall, Teamwork, and also Office 365, Outlook.com, and Google Calendar. Okay, I think that's all my answer. Thank you.
Okay, from group 7, first question.
Okay,
Can you
Adinda.
explain more about?
Adinda, I
Yes,
think time's up. Yeah, it's 10:30 already. I think you will have your next class. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt your next classes. Yeah, so remember what you need to do. Yeah, you will answer the question. Yeah, you could record you when you are answering the question. Yeah, group 2 and group 6. Yeah. Okay. Before we close this session, do you have any question?
Yes, I have a question, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Untuk yang rekotan dari menjawab pertanyaan kelompok yang belum dijawab itu, sir, kirim di e-learningnya ya, sir.
Nggak, kirim ke saya saja.
Ke WA ya, sir.
Ya, ke WA. To the ya, ke WA it's okay ya.
Yes, sir.
If it is not too large ya.
sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Sir,
sir.
itu jawab pertanyaan yang belum terjawab yang belum terjawab aja, sir ya.
Yeah, the unanswered question only ya. The answered
Tinggal satu,
question
sir.
no need.
Oke. Grup 6 tinggal satu soalnya, sir.
That's okay, no problem.
Oke, sir.
Record dalam bentuk suara, ya, sir, atau
Video.
video.
Video, you have your cell phone, right?
Sir, ini grup yang presentasi buat summary juga nggak, Sir?
Yes, of course. And then the summary is individual, yeah?
Oke, Sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, no more question. I think that would be all for today. See you again next week, yeah? And I hope that our meeting next week will be smoother than this one, yeah? We could have more time to discuss, yeah, than doing the technical things, yeah? Okay? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good
Yes,
morning.
sir.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.